Great Wednesday. Welcome to the Fully Human Connections podcast. I'm your host, King, and I'm joined by co-host Reggie. How you doing today, Reggie?
Doing well, King. Good to see you. We've been off for I think a month, and so it's good to be back here on the podcast with you.
Same here, same here. And it's been a while, but we still like to continue our tradition of getting started with dealing with what we're grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go first. Grateful for my life, my health, my ability to see, hear, walk, talk, stand, breathe, and have a sound mind. Grateful for another 24 hours to pursue my purpose in life. Grateful for a mother who's still alive, has a sound mind, even though she's transitioned to another phase of her life as far as being fully dependent, but still can converse with her and still feel love. I'm grateful for, the opportunity to continue to do the show. We've taken a month break because of a lot of things we had going on, but excited to be back. So just grateful for the challenges and problems in my life because through those I gained wisdom and growth. So that's mine.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I've never asked you this before, but what's your spiritual energy today?
I'm a 10. And I always choose a 10, even though some days it can be difficult to choose a 10. But, that's the challenge, to find a reason to choose a 10. Because I tell folks I just don't see any logical reason to choose a lesser number. It's not like if I choose a 3 because I have all these things going on in my life, the day gets better. It's just there's no value in it.
Yeah. So we're
value in a 10.
Yeah. So I'm laughing, and for anybody who's listening in, because that's a question that King usually asks me. I think that's the first time I've ever asked it. So I'm proud of myself. So my energy is also a 10. I choose that as I've been taught by my good friend, and I'm grateful for. I rent a home, and it has electricity with indoor plumbing, and a refrigerator with fresh food in it, mostly fresh food, some leftovers. And those are just some basic things that I'm acutely aware that billions of people on the planet don't have access to. So I just feel blessed with those basic things. I also have I love to read and write and teach. I have my books, but I'm aware of how privileged I am just to have my basics taken care of. And I have good friends and some extended family members whom I love and who love me. For the most part, they love me. And I'm just deeply grateful for all of those things.
Excellent. And why don't you go ahead and kick us off into what our show is going to be about today?
Yeah, so for over 2 years now, we've been speaking about Healing America's Narratives, which is the title of a 2022 book, subtitled The Feminine, the Masculine, and Our Collective National Shadow. We've been going through everything from the history of women to the history of Native Americans, African Americans, the Vietnam War, post 9/11 wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, culture wars in this country, woke and cancel culture, healthcare, across the whole gamut of current events in the United States. And we're going to continue with that today. This is just the context within which we hold all of these current events. And the collective national shadow, that's the part of the nation that tens of millions of Americans make believe isn't true or don't see that it's true. And there are 9 basic traits to shadow, and they'll be relevant today once we get going with our specific topic. And the 9 basic traits of the collective shadow of the United States are ignorance, arrogance, fear, bigotry, violence, greed, excess, bullying, and untrustworthiness. And again, those I can prove. Those have been proven. There may be more, but those 9 are definitely there. So what we're going to do today, based on some, major shifts in the political scene in the last 3.5 or 4 weeks, we now have the Republican presidential candidate is Donald Trump. Again, he's been the Republican candidate for the last 3 election cycles for president. And the presumptive Democratic candidate has not yet been confirmed through all of the delegates, which probably happen at the convention, is Vice President Kamala Harris, who stepped into the role when President Joe Biden decided not to continue his run for re-election for a variety of reasons. So what we're looking at today specifically is the juxtaposition of a wealthy, born into wealth, second generation German American white heterosexual male, Donald Trump, in opposition to a first generation Jamaican-Indian-American heterosexual woman, Kamala Harris. Trump, who spent his entire adult life running the business that he inherited from his father. Harris, who after going to Howard University, went to one of the California State University law schools and spent the next 27 years working as a prosecutor in the state of California. Entry-level jobs at first, then she became a district attorney. I believe it was in the San Francisco area. Then the California State Attorney General, which I believe she held for 13 years, until she was tapped to become the Vice President of the United States with Joe Biden. So juxtaposing this lifelong prosecutor and then Vice President with a lifelong corporate guy who's a convicted felon and has other indictments, both civil and criminal, against him, who has been president of the United States for 4 years. So that's the juxtaposition of the choice that the United States voting citizens will have in November. And both parties, in terms of both stating their own positions, their own, if you want to call them, platforms, and in attacking their opponents, that has already begun. And the way it's being done, in my listening to them, feeds directly in this idea of healing America's narratives, and more specifically, the feminine, the masculine, and our collective national shadow. So that's what we want to talk about today, is these two candidates, their supporters, and this juxtaposition of feminine and masculine energy and the collective shadow of the country. So that's enough for me now. I'll just close my mouth for a moment and let you just jump in.
Well, again, it's great to be back on the show with you. And as usual, you've chosen a great topic, a very timely topic as well. And I really see how the feminine and masculine shadows are really prevalent. And the language that's being used, how the media continues, on both sides to talk about each candidate, and just really listening to, I like to watch YouTube videos of the actual MSNBC shows, or maybe some of the Fox clips, just so I can scroll through the comments. That's the best thing about YouTube. You get a chance to scroll through the comments and see what people are actually saying, some of the discourse happening in the comments. What really, I shouldn't say surprises me, but definitely I find to be what jumps out at me is how in addition to the masculine energy, how it's formed a cult around Trump. So much so to the point where he can do no wrong. And we've talked about that before, but literally I don't see how people can claim patriotism in one breath and then look at all the things he's doing as destroying the Constitution, democracy, and still say patriotism. Yeah. It's like, This man has clearly come out and said on several occasions that don't vote. I mean, it's actually clips of him saying, "Don't vote. I don't need any more votes. I don't need any more votes. You don't have to. You don't have to." And saying like he has this election, he has to shoe in. They say he has to fix it. It's in because he said at a Christian conference, this will be your last time you're going to vote for me. So again, the vote's emphasis. He even said it's we got it fixed. Where this will be your last time you vote. So I say all that to say it's just really interesting how he's allowed to do that. And a few people talk about it, but that's not like the prevailing story. That should be like a lead-in story where he's forced to deal with it and can't run from it. But it's like one or two analysts on MSNBC or CNN might mention it, and that's it. Then we get to mention everything else as though that's just, interesting news for the moment. This man is telling you who truly said didn't want to leave power the last time he was in office and still claimed that the presidential election was fixed or it was stolen from him. And this time he's telling folks if I get elected again, or even if I don't get elected again through a democratic process, I'm going to still take the election. I'm going to still take it. So my question for you would be, where would that fit into the masculine energy to have that kind of bravado strategy with ego? Explain how that masculine energy kind of covers.
Yes. Yeah. So I love the question. So just a quick review of the two energies that we're working with. So the masculine energy tends toward individualism, a need for justice, a need for a belief in wisdom, and the feminine energy. And I'm just giving a real overview here, is more about relationship and community as opposed to individualism, more about mercy than justice, more about compassion than wisdom. So the feminine energy, again, is relational and more communal, and the masculine is more, the rugged individualist, which is one of the myths of the United States. So in Trump's case, he's, I would say, and I can back this up, we're not going to give you all the details. You can, if you're a more or less reasonable person operating in good faith, you can just look these up. He's a pathological version of the masculine individual focus. He only cares about himself. He has no history of service. He was his father made him the president of Trump Industries a year or two out of college, and he's believed he's a success ever since then. And he's never done anything. I mean, let me rephrase that. He may have been generous with a given person at some time in his life. He may have done a kind thing for some person. I'm sure he has. But if you look at his trajectory as the builder, the heir, and then the builder of the Trump company, it's all about branding himself. Even as president of the United States, he continued to do that. Anybody who says that's not true is lying. I mean, because the evidence is in front of us. You can make believe it's not there. I mean, so he has a level of bravado there. And I read either this morning or yesterday morning a really, I thought, insightful analogy about what he does and why he does it. And Jonathan Last is one of the writers and columnists on the Bulwark, which is a group of journalists, both right-leaning and left-leaning, who work together to give opposing views on similar issues. And what Last said, and this was really telling, and especially because we've spoken about professional wrestling in the past, how well it's marketed and what it is as entertainment. And he basically said, Trump has a direct relationship with Vince McMahon, basically the founder of the current iteration of professional wrestling. And for decades, McMahon called all the shots. Who was going to win, who was going to lose, who was going to become a star, who wasn't going to become a star. And there were two things he looked for. And Trump has, it seems, grabbed hold of one of them. And they called it bringing heat in the wrestling world. And there were two times of heat. There was the heat of being disliked and hated by the wrestling fans. Because if you could really get them to boo you and hate you, you became a star. And the other kind of heat was the likability heat, the good heat, where they would cheer for you to win. And that tension drives professional wrestling. And if you don't have a lot of heat, either the heat of being cheered for because they want you to win, or being booed because they hope to see you lose and they really dislike you, you don't become a star in the World Wrestling Federation. So what Trump has done, according to, this is Jonathan Lath's assessment of it, he's kind of played with both of those. He's played the heat of being hated to the left. He antagonizes the left. So he gets print, he gets broadcast media, he gets to be in the spotlight. And then when he goes to speak to his alleged followers, because he needs their donations, he plays to whoever's in front of him. And that's the other kind of heat, the likability heat. My beautiful, beautiful Christian people, which he said, that's how we introduced the talk about, just vote this one last time and we're going to fix it. You'll never have to vote again. He was speaking to this Christian group in Florida. So he's taken this pathological me-centered, because it's not about the Republican Party. He destroyed the Republican Party. It's not about Christianity, because he's not a practicing Christian. It's about whoever's willing to fund his continuing attempt to brand himself as a powerful man. And he's very good at it. He's very good at that branding marketing thing. But it's a pathological example of unhealthy, me-centric, masculine energy. So I think I more or less answered your question. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's also interesting and what's telling is just, like I said before, I look at when Trump was on trial, that was really white supremacy being on trial. Because we keep constantly hearing that no one's above the law. But Trump keeps proving that he is above the law. The Supreme Court granted him immunity while he's in office, with a really broad, level of what that means. So what's interesting though is how many people who are Trump supporters and claim it's about policy. That's the part that gets me. It's like they try to talk about, well, Trump's going to be better for the economy. So that's why I'm voting for Trump. Even though he destroys the democracy, but those economies thrive and you're happy. It's like that I don't see from a rational person. I almost got more respect for his Trump supporters who believe everything he says and kind of lift them up as a cult, because at least they're being honest. You might disagree with them. At least they're being honest to say, well, I believe Trump is the answer, and I believe Trump is gonna make America great for us. Again, we could disagree, and that's a false belief. We know that Trump doesn't do anything for that particular population. Yeah. But I believe their intentions are genuine. The fact that they truly believe that. The ones that go out to his crowds and wear the mega hats. But the ones who claim that, I listen to them on their podcast, that they vote for Trump because of his policies. I just think that to me are ones who are the worst, because you're attempting to appear normal and logical and critical in your thoughts. But what you're really doing, to your point, is tapping into that masculine energy as well, because what you see is that what Trump has created is similar to the NFL. He's created a environment around him that if you can figure out And it's not easy. I mean, it's very easy too. You can figure out how to tap into the energy around Trump. You can make money, whether you're black or white. He's proven that. From Candace Owens to all the so-called folks podcasters who claim to be conservative podcasters, who have really grown because they come out and support Trump and lifted up Trump. And because of that, they get attention, they get eyeballs just as much as him. So if you come out in favor of Trump, particularly if you really are extreme to the point where you never mention any of the things he does wrong, you just mention how great he was, how the economy was, and those things, you're going to pretty much, you can write a book to make your money. And that's what J.D. Vance figured out. He saw that as well. He first came out and he was against Trump, and Trump was Hitler, by his own quotes. And then he realized, I'm not getting as much leverage as I would like. And since he switched over to now Trump is the greatest thing, Trump is king for the most part. Now he's vice president. So he's created that pathway that if you come out and you want to join a cult and lift Trump up, you can be successful. And these folks have done that. And that's the part that really, I wish we get called out more. Because I think everyone who does that, again, not the mega folks who, go to his rallies and truly believe he's really going to do something for them or their particular population, but the ones who only support him because they see they have an agenda. And as long as their agenda works, as long as they're getting sponsorship from conservative companies, they're getting eyeballs from those mega folks who want to hear that, they're going to continue to do it, regardless of the consequences. And that's what YouTube has really become now. And that's the part that's really discouraging to me. I can't wait till we shift away from that, because we shift into a very dangerous time now where everything's about getting eyeballs. What headline can I create on my video to get the most sensational views, regardless if it's true or not?
Yep.
As long as I get you to click on my video, that's all that matters. So to me, I wonder where the consciousness will rise above it to the point where folks are going to start tuning those people off, as well as the YouTube algorithms won't reward them for that type of, I would call it propaganda and lies. So again, in addition to all the masculine energy that I see happening within the Trump universe, it's just that, and I mentioned the NFL because the NFL creates that as well. I mean, you think about watching a football game. It's not just watching a football game. You gotta buy a jersey, you buy food, you're buying, trinkets, you buy, helmets. It's a whole industry of other businesses that profit off the football NFL, brand. And that's, to me, is what's happening with Trump. All these individuals are profiting off Trump's brand and his ideology just for their own personal growth. I don't really believe they believe in Trump, but they see that he's a pathway to getting my voice out there, getting eyeballs, getting attention. And then if I write a book, who knows where I can grow and what I can do within my career as a result of that as well.
Yeah, I would take that even. I agree with that. And using the NFL as an example and what Trump does and kind of aligning yourself with something that makes money, and getting, increased clickability, which is, I even hate saying that, like, but it's true. We've been reduced to that in many ways. But I would even take it a step further. If you take any medium, whether it's actual television, whether it's streaming services, whether it's social media, Instagram, Facebook, anything you want to pick, X, find something that exists that engages with participants that's not designed to sell something and make money. Everything that we see, except maybe this podcast, but everything that we're exposed to is designed especially with you if you're looking at the NFL or anything on television. Even if you like TV shows like FBI or NCIS or I just SEAL team or whatever happens to float your boat, and you look at in the commercials, they're all just designed to make money for corporations and to convince me that I need this car, this toothpaste, this dust mop, this pharmaceutical, this whatever. So it's all that's the nature of the United States now, and probably Western culture is. And I talk about this in the book, and I think it's even more of an issue now than I did when I finished the book. That one of the issues in the United States is that we value as a nation. When I say we, I don't mean every single individual, because it's not true for every individual, but collectively. Look at the society, look at the culture, look at what we're offered by the corporate world and the government. And it values money, things, and beliefs more than it values human beings and other living beings. From by that I mean dogs, cats, bear, worms, oak trees, whatever. We value money, things, and beliefs more than we value human beings. Because if we valued human beings more, there would be more equitable distribution of wealth. But the system as it exists nowadays doesn't distribute wealth equitably. Ever since the steel industry and the railroads and the land industry taking the land from Native Americans, it's always been designed to collect money for a few people and take it from others. And so the stereotypical the labor management debates, union versus corporations, still exist today. There's a reason unions emerged, because workers weren't being treated well by the railroads and the steel industry and the oil industry years ago. That still exists, and a few people make billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars, while those who work in the trenches, some make a livable wage and can buy their houses and everything, but it still trickles down. But we still have lots of kids in rural and urban America who go to school hungry every morning. And the schools they go to hungry tend not to be great schools. So there's this, and then just to finalize that, Donald Trump's party is the party that has fought against early childhood education, better school lunches for kids, or breakfast for kids who don't have, they live in poverty. So they want to make sure that every pregnant woman gives birth, but then they don't really care about the kid once the kid is born. So I mean, all these things kind of tie in. I'm going to put a period, comma there, and then I have some critiques of the Democratic Party too, but they address these issues or try to. And during the Biden administration, they've been thwarted by a House of Representatives that's led by, clowns and buffoons, basically, who just want to try to indict Joe Biden for something, or punish his son and punish Joe Biden for his son, and rather than governing. So it used to be you could make an argument for kind of traditional conservative values versus progressive democratic values. Maybe, I don't know when, but you could probably make that argument. You can't make the argument anymore because the current Republican Party wants to tear down democracy, basically. And they're faced with a woman in the Democratic presidential candidacy, who, I'm sure people in California will critique her time as attorney general and as a district attorney and as a prosecuting attorney, because every attorney is going to get critiqued. Some people voted for her, some people didn't vote for her when she was in an elected position. But she spent the first 27 years of her life out of college enforcing the law. versus Donald Trump, who before he ran for president was involved in over 3,500 lawsuits as both plaintiff and defendant because he constantly thwarted the law, either suing other people or being sued by people whom he typically didn't pay or keep his end of a contract. That's the choice. And last thing I'll say, and you touched on this, the criticisms of Kamala Harris. There are some talking about her time as Attorney General, but the vast majority of her criticisms are about her ethnicity and her gender. I mean, Hillary Clinton bore the brunt of the gender insults as well, being a woman candidate. But Harris, whose father was born in Jamaica, whose mother was born in India, who came here and ended up becoming, college professors, highly competent in their fields. She's multiracial, a woman of color, and progressive. And she's up against a guy who has criticized generally women, people of color, and poor people. So the voting citizens of the United States have it's not like they're alike in these ways. These two candidates are so different. The election will give us a sense of where the people of the United States really fall in terms of their view of the world and what they think America can and or should be. In my sense, and it was now. There's a court case. There's a court case. This system is rigged. The jury was unfair.
Unfortunately, the screen is freezing.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah, difficulty. Last few words you said is like right now your picture's frozen.
Okay, because I saw it blink. Can you hear me at all now or no?
Your voice is distorted as well. So your picture's frozen. Okay. The words are distorted.
Because on my end, you're fine.
You want to try to turn your camera off? Let
me try that, yeah. So is this any better?
Yeah, the voice now is clear.
Okay, so let me just stay with that. In fact, I actually reset my whole system before we got on just to make sure we wouldn't run into problems. But just to bring this to a close, what I was saying, I really believe that if every citizen who is eligible to vote in this country registers and votes, I mean, I can't account for the Electoral College because that skews everything. But I would say that Donald Trump will lose by over 15 to 20 million votes if everybody votes, because he represents maybe 30% of the electorate. And a lot of his supporters are vocal, they're loud, but the vast majority of people disagree with his Supreme Court's rulings and disagree with his agenda for America. He lost to Joe Biden by almost 8 billion votes in 2020, and he lost to Hillary Clinton by almost 3 million votes. So he's never won a popular vote. So I really believe that he will lose in a landslide in the popular vote if everybody exercises their democratic, and I don't mean Democratic Party, but their rights in democratic system of government to vote. The bare minimum thing they're required to do, to vote. I'll shut up now.
What concerns me about that is, like you said, if everyone who, to your analogy or to what your example you just laid out, was to vote, Kamala should win. But what concerns me is the fact that you mentioned the Electoral College and how that process works. And I think that maybe that ties into when Trump talked about it's fixed. You don't have to vote for me anymore. I think that's what he's alluding to. I think he has the governors in place that, have to, they nominate the electors who vote. I don't think that process, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong and they still hold up to democracy this time like they did last time. But I believe that that's where they should really be examining the fixes in, because I think what Trump did in 2020 was test the system.
Mhm.
He just, let me see if I say the election was stolen, what can I get away with? I, look for the holes, look for the cracks. And I think what he learned was, okay, I can get the courts. Uh, I got to go through the courts and get them certified. Got the Supreme Court now, pretty much that's going to vote in his favor. So those things are the systems that I see in place that are going to be what has to be tested with this election more so than anything else.
Yeah.
I think that, to your point, unless something else, you know, surprising comes out of the next 90 days, I see the momentum, the energy. Kamala's created a movement. I don't know if you're aware. I'm sure you are. You stay pretty newsworthy. The different groups that's come out now, like White Men for Kamala. And I didn't realize you could have 150,000 people on the Zoom session. That's I couldn't imagine that many people be on the Zoom. But folks got on Zoom and they're raising capital for it. They're motivated. It's like Biden stepping down just really energized everybody for sure.
Yeah.
Even myself, I mean, I didn't like Kamala when she ran for president on her own in 2019. I didn't like her. I didn't like her. I just really didn't like her stance. To me, she just seemed like she was trying to be black when it afforded her to be black, and then when it afforded her to be Indian, and she wanted to be Indian. So to me, it was like she's put on different masks to the audience, and then what I heard about her record in California. So I really wasn't really a big fan of hers. But now I am. Now I'm gonna vote for her. I'm enthusiastic about voting for her
Mhm.
because it has come down to really good versus evil in that context. To really, to me, to sum it up, as an engineer, I'm always here for the basic root of it. What's the crux of it? And that's the crux of it. How can I, get the basic understanding of it? And that's what I see. I mean, because at the end of the day, what she's saying is more kind and just than what Trump does say, or what Trump represents. I mean, just to think about the fact that you're going to say, we're going to come up and tell women what they can do with their bodies. That I would vote against that on every level, whether I agree on any other policy that she stands for. I disagree with just that at the fundamental level.
Mm.
I'm going to vote for the candidate that stands for women's right to choose. But again, we've talked about this before. You've written a book about it. What I hate is how, in this media, in this landscape, this environment we're living in now, how people say one thing and mean something completely different.
Yeah.
There's no truth anymore in what they're saying. Because I don't really believe that the Republicans who claim that they're all about pro-life is really concerned about a fetus. I think, to be honest, what they're concerned about is a white fetus. And they want to make sure that because of the population of whites not being able to grow as quickly as they would like, they want to make sure that they take abortion out of the equation. And they don't just say that clearly, but I believe that's what it stands for. I don't think they care about a black fetus or a brown fetus for Spanish or Hispanic individuals. They can care less about those fetuses. They definitely don't care once they get to be 2 or 3 because they don't, as you laid out before, they don't have any. They care less about maybe preschool or early care programs to help those children. So, but they won't ever say that. They're going to just keep saying, "Well, it's about pro-life and things of nature." So those are the things that really, I would say, stick in my craw. Is the fact that they're able to sit here, change words like "woke," lie on certain words, and then play off the ignorance of so many people who are not politically astute, and push their narrative out there. And then finally, I want to close on this point. it just shows you how, and I'm just looking at myself in this context, how Kamala went from, eh, my feelings on her was just kind of like, she's the vice president. I wasn't really impressed with her as a choice. To, and I really wasn't impressed with Joe Biden much. But now I have tremendous respect for Joe Biden for what he did stepping down. Just, to sit here and say I'm not going to run for president again, when your ego tells you you're the president, he's been in politics for 51 years. It takes a tremendous amount of effort to do that. For him to do that, I think he needs to be applauded. I mean, you lifting him up with when we do close our show out, we highlight someone we look at the example of being fully human. And you mentioned Joe Biden then, but to see him do that and put the country first, that to me speaks volumes to his character. And that it's like you want to be on that winning side. You want to be on that side of history because that's the side that seems to be just. That's the side that seems to be. It's like, I use an analogy quickly. Watching Star Wars. You're watching Star Wars. You want to, if you're human, you want to root for Luke and Leia, and Han and Chewie. Rooting for Vader was good for the movie to have its special effects, but at the end, you wanted the Jedi Force to win.
Yeah.
So that to me is where it's like Trump represents, and I'm not saying all conservatives. I'm saying the mega Trumps who lift up Trump despite his 32 convictions, despite him wanting to end democracy. If you're still riding with him despite those things, and you still see him as some kind of better choice politically, then I'm praying for your downfall. Simple as that. It's like because you're praying for the country's downfall to elect him. So to me, I just want to state those facts.
Yeah, I had the same feeling when they had I forget how many Democratic candidates were in the primary in 2020, but with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg and the other people up on the stage, and Bernie Sanders was up there. And I don't think she was a particularly strong, her skill set wasn't standing up, waiting her turn and trying to make a point. What she was really good at was, as a prosecutor, was preparing a case. And those debate formats didn't allow her to, I think, present herself in her strength. But, I believe in human development. I believe in growth. I've been trying to learn and grow every day my entire life. And she just seems, for me now, I always thought she was competent. Right. Now she seems confident as well. And I think the timing is just right for her because the country is saying, in fairness, the country would be ready for almost anybody who was a decent candidate. But she brings the feminine, she brings the prosecutorial law enforcement piece, she brings the multi-ethnic background, and she brings experience. I mean, she's coming into this with 31 years, I'm making that number up, it's around 31 years of experience in government, state and federal. Donald Trump became president in 2016 with 0 years of experience. And he wasn't, he never really ran a public company. He ran his own family business, so he could do whatever he wanted. He was in charge of everything. So, and he hadn't had any kind of service. So she's given a life of service and she cares. And he seems not to. So I agree with what you said. I mean, I think it's time to keep the train rolling toward November. And one last thing I'll say, and this is, I don't really want to say much about whether it was a bullet or a bullet fragment that nicked his ear. And if you notice, there's not even he wants to say blood was pouring and all this stuff. Like once the bandage came off, and anybody that listens to this knows that, or read the book, I'm against violence. I don't want anybody to be shot. whether it's first graders at Sandy Hook or high school students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas or dancers at Pulse or wherever it is. I'm against that. But there's not even a scab or any indication of damage on his ear. One, something happened, but two things came up for me when all of that played out. One was, if that had been reversed, if Joe Biden had his ear nicked at a rally, think about what the Republicans in Congress and the Trump campaign would have said about it.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have been as up in arms about the failings of the Secret Service because it wasn't their guy. I hate to say that, but that's how they behave.
Right.
And they would have said it was a hoax. And what? I don't even see anything there. How did he get shot? There's not even a mark on his ear, not the bandage. So,
the way he went down, he must have did something to his ear when he was on the ground.
Yeah, some ketchup or something, right? So, and I'm saying that now to compare the Democratic response to a political opponent being shot, as opposed to how the Republicans would respond to somebody, one of their opponents. That's one. And that speaks volumes to who these people are. The second thing is, in August of 2016, and I looked this up last week, Donald Trump said in a speech, in part of his campaign in 2016, speaking about the dangers should Hillary Clinton win, he said, I don't know, folks, if she wins and she appoints her Supreme Court justices, there's nothing you're going to be able to do, folks, except, well, I don't know, maybe the Second Amendment folks, maybe there's something they can do.
Right.
So he implied that maybe somebody could shoot her. Now he backed that, he tried to back down from that, but that's exactly what he said. You can go find it on YouTube. And then he gets nicked in the ear by something. So a guy who's calling for violence in kind of a clever way gets it. He gets nicked in the ear by a bullet or bullet fragments. And the FBI is still investigating that. They're still looking for the bullet and trying to figure out if it could have been a ricochet or what it was that actually hit his ear. But then again, the FBI, they're all criminals too, according to Trump, and they should be disbanded. So whatever they find, if it supports his story, he'll say, yeah, they finally got one right. And if it doesn't support his story, they'll say, yeah, that's just the fake FBI. So that's how he operates. So it's scary. It's a scary time, I think.
It's a very scary time. It's a time full of tremendous uncertainty, but to your point, we kind of saw what the Republicans and Trump them said when Nancy Pelosi's husband got attacked. I mean, they gave us exactly how they feel about it. So they wouldn't care it at all, and they would have said it was fixed. Joe just did that so he can try to get more votes and get the sympathy vote. And so that's what's really interesting is how the media is complicit. I'm talking about the liberal media is complicit and lifting up Trump's message. I mean, you've heard of Alan Lichtman, correct?
Mm-hmm.
He told him directly today, like, you guys are just as guilty, if not more so, of helping Trump to become elected. He said, he asked a question. He said, let me ask you this question. Why is it that after the debate that you all spend more time talking about Biden's age, his stumbles, and whether that should he step down instead of the lies Trump told?
Yep.
He said, you spend more time on that, and why not talk about Trump? So it does make you sit here and look at and say to yourself, why is that? Why are, even Biden had to check with the Stone Phillips, and he was asking them the question about, constantly his age. He said, how come you don't talk about Trump's lies? He said, why are you not asking me about that? Why is that not being talked about? And it's like that constantly makes you feel as though something's not right. It's like it's like with the media the first time in the 2016 election, when CNN focused on Trump's podium all the time, and he wasn't there yet. And they kept saying, well, they were showing this podium constantly, like he should be here in 20 minutes, 30, 40 minutes, or whatever. And they was giving so much time to his podium and give him all this free press and all this free attention. And I look at all the late night shows, and the servants say they hate the late night shows, but every late night show, Jimmy Kimmel, for the last year, even actually ever since Trump's been in power, his monologue, same thing with Steve Colbert, their monologue is Trump.
Yeah.
They telling you, well, Trump said this on True Social. It's like, I would not even know what Trump's saying. I don't listen to True Social, or I don't, subscribe to True Social, but I'm always kept abreast of what he's saying by the so-called liberal media. Yeah. So why are they complicit with making sure that Trump's message gets out there? Yeah. Because again, they know Trump's name clicks eyeballs. If Trump is saying something, you're going to click on it. It's going to get the viewership. And that's all the media cares about now. What gets more viewership? It's not going to get more viewership if you say the Republican Party is trying to destroy democracy. One other thing real quick that I would say Kamala's candidacy right now has given me the same kind of euphoric feeling that when Obama was running. I had been this excited. I'm literally listening to all the political shows and into politics more so now than I was a month ago. Yeah. And so I give her credit for that. Now it's funny how my thinking has shifted towards her just that fast. And I see her as this person that can unite the country because I'm seeing it happen. Yeah. I'm seeing folks come out and applaud her, support her. Money's been raised for her. People are excited again. Young folks are excited again. She brings that out. And so you're right. Timing is everything. She could have done it in 2019. She's doing it now. And so I can't see how she can lose unless they steal the election. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that, for me, is scary. But it's also the part of me that just really, if we're, as a country, are going to get past this, this is a test for us as a country to see what direction we want to go in.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment really quickly on the complicity of the media with Trump. And I remember that moment when Biden actually kind of leaned in from his chair and said, well, what about, Trump's lies? You don't say anything about it, but he leaned forward. I love that he leaned forward. And he didn't stammer or stutter when he said it. He was like right in his eyes. But I think Trump's personality has been normalized. I mean, the Washington Post still tracks the lies, I think. But books came out and articles came out back in 2016 during the campaign, just counting the lies. They had the Pinocchio scale, like, depending on how it was. But it became normalized because that's just what he does. What they should do with Trump is track truthful things he says, because it would be more of a news story. I mean, that's funny,
right?
But it's really true. But also his strategy of calling the left, calling New York Times, Washington Post, the network news, all fake news. They made efforts to lean less to the left. They tried to come, and New York Times took a lot of heat for it. So they made efforts to, reverse any bias they had. And I think that played in to a certain extent how they covered it. I'm not making excuses. I agree with you 100% because they're complicit. Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, over and over again. I mean, Kimmel especially. I mean, that's his lifeblood. His debate with Donald Trump. I mean, that's, and he's a smart guy and he's a funny guy and all. I don't dislike him, but does he not understand what he's doing?
Right.
And then the last thing, how you couched it, it played right back into what Jonathan Last said about World Wrestling Federation and Vince McMahon, where Trump, along with Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, just keeps on getting the bad guy press to keep himself in the news. It's exactly what Jimmy Kimmel allows him to do, and what Colbert and others allow him to do. Here's the guy we love to boo. Here's the guy we want more of because we can cheer against him. And that's what they give him. So yeah, it's not your grandfather's country. We have to make America great the way it used to be. Okay. All right.
Well, we reached the top of the hour now, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's an interesting show. I'm sure we're going to have multiple segments on this because as an election, you know, each week in this country, something happens. So, you know, but at least you can say these times are exciting. Yeah, I don't know about you, but my week goes by so much faster now. It's like, wow, I can't believe I can't believe it's Wednesday already.
Yeah.
The week just started and it's already Wednesday. But as we wrap things up, we want to move into the next segment where you want to give us some good tips and some good advice on how we can move forward and continue on the path to become more fully human.
Yeah. So I mean, the exploration I think this week is a pretty basic one, and it's what kind of a world, but more specifically, what kind of a country do you want to live in? And is it a country in which every American citizen is respected, where your vote and your voice count, and where the basic freedoms you were led to believe are real? Or is it a country where you want a handful of people, most of whom are white, heterosexual males and wealthy, some females as well, but mostly males, are going to begin telling you what's right and wrong because they know better than you do? Which of those do you want? Because it's a pretty clear choice between the Trump Republican Party and the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is not without its flaws, but they're flaws that they face up to and they work within the party to fix, sometimes skillfully, sometimes not. The Republican Party of today is a danger to democracy as we've known it. So what kind of a country do you want to live in, and which of the parties and which of their candidates do you think is really going to give you that? And then vote accordingly. If you want the autocratic leadership of heterosexual, wealthy, white Christian males, vote for Trump. If you want a more democratic nation, vote for Kamala Harris.
Sorry about that. I have multiple alarms on my phone. But yeah, thank you for sharing it, because you're absolutely right. It's, and you and I, we've made it a point for our show not to be, um, nonpartisan.
Right.
But it's gotten to the point now where, like I said, it's not about Democrat versus Republican. It's about
Right.
good versus bad, good versus evil. Because that's what Megan Trump represents. And I mean, it makes you long for the days of Mitt Romney, folks at that level. Those conservatives. Then they weren't evil. It was just a different ideology. But now Trump has really shown that he's bringing out the worst in this country, and the worst in people, whether they're, like I said, they're lying for profit, ones who are the rich white folks who want to still control the world, control women's rights, control how wealth is distributed in this country, all those things. So thank you for giving us a path of how we can begin to process this and still find humanity. And as we speak about humanity, we want to move into the last segment of our show, which is to highlight someone we feel is an example of, has shown the behavior characteristics, either currently or in the past, of what it means to be a fully human individual, fully human. I'm going to go first, and I've been battling in my mind between one or two people, but I'm going to go with the person that came to my mind initially. And I can't believe I would say this because I really didn't care too much for him when he was alive, particularly because of his reluctance and his he opposed Dr. Martin Luther King getting a holiday in Arizona, and that was John McCain. But now, I remember a Castro quote when he talked about history will resolve me. And to me, that's what I feel as far as John McCain, because what stands in my mind now, and that's why I want to lift him up as being fully human, is that I may not agree with all where he stood as far as his views on a lot of things, But when it came to his character, as far as what he saw was right and wrong, and he was one of the few at first folks to come out and not support Trump. I remember he voted down, came out, put his thumb down when he was on death's door. And he came to the Congress and voted. So to me, that's someone who's still fully human. And that also shows that we don't necessarily have to agree with somebody politically for them to be a human being, and for us to see humanity in that individual. But when it came time for him to be a human being and even step up to the next level where we can admire him, I think he did. I think he should be looking up more so now as examples of what a man is. And again, being a heterosexual white male, he still showed his best humanity in his final moments. And so I want to look up John McCain in that context.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And so I'm going to go with Pete Buttigieg, the current Secretary of Transportation in the Biden administration. He's a military veteran. He's a father of two. He's gay. He's one of the more articulate, even I would say eloquent people in elected. I guess he's an appointed position as Secretary of Transportation, but he was, mayor for some years in Indiana. I forget which town now. It might have been South Bend, but don't quote me on that. But he's been campaigning all over the country, but he's been on Fox News fairly regularly. I mean, especially in the last month, but even for the last year or two, they invite him on, and he has access to, it seems like everything he's ever learned. He has immediate access to it, which is wonderful. But he's really clear, he's very articulate, and he lets them say things that aren't true, and then he corrects them. And he does it like he's not one of the talking heads who's yelling back and forth. He waits his turn, and then he makes corrections. And when he gets interrupted, he's very polite about saying, "Please let me finish." But he's been really loyal. He says he'll do whatever it takes to help Kamala Harris be elected. He's on the short list, they say, of being a vice presidential consideration, which I don't think he's going to get this time around, because I think politically, I would vote for him for president in the future. But I think politically, putting a woman of color and the gay man on the same ticket in 2024 is not a politically strategic thing to do, although I would vote for either of them. So, but Pete Buttigieg, I think, is just wonderful. Yeah.
So, are you advocating for a DEI hire? That we need to have a white heterosexual male be Kamala's vice president? I mean, strategic. I agree. I think everyone agrees. That, she has to choose a DEI hire in this context. But
that's actually great, because the DEI hire is a white guy. That's the best. That's the best.
Right. But, so that, to me, that's, I want to close the show by saying this, is that's where we got to get to the point where we can find humor again in some of these things, And one last thing I left off for John McCain, I really want to point out that I forgot, was he was against all this name calling and political discourse at that level as well. Because I remember during when he was actually on a television show, and it was a question and answer period, and this woman came up and said that Obama was a Muslim and he wasn't an American citizen, and he corrected it.
Yeah.
He instead said, "You're absolutely right," which what they would do right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he would be against the whole DEI hire and all that name calling that they're doing right now. So that's why I said it kind of makes you long for those days. You thought those days were bad, but you respect those individuals now. Yeah. You just ran strictly on policy. Yeah. And hopefully we can get back to the point where that's where those conversations, our political discourse, gets back to just based on policy and not so much hatred where we are right now.
Nowadays, they would say, if somebody said that, Obama's a Muslim and he's not an American, they would say, Well, I don't know, but if you say maybe that is true, that's how they would respond. Well, I don't know, but maybe he is a Muslim. That's kind of subtle. Just like Kamala Harris doesn't like Jews. Oh, except for her husband.
Right. Or the fact that she shouldn't be allowed, she can't be president because she wasn't born in this country as well, or that her parents weren't born here. It's like, well, how can she be vice president? Sometimes people don't even think about what they're saying. They're consumed by so much hatred and they're fueled by the media who just taps into what they want to hear. But as we close the show, Reggie, again, I want to thank you for, being present as usual. And I really mean that, because nowadays, in this world of smartphones, you recognize when people are not present. I mean, physically, they're present in your face, but their mind's not.
What do you say?
Exactly. And I want to thank our listening audience who may be listening live or may listen to this recording, that, again, we have reached times in our country where I think everyone should be looking for the path to become more fully human, not for your own just personal mental balance, but to save our democracy. I mean, you've been saying that for most of our show, and to be honest, I was like leaning towards, I don't know, Reggie, but now I'm 100% on board. And I sent you an email on this real quick before we close out. I got to give your flowers on this. You were the first person that mentioned Project 2025. We talked about it. Yeah. I wasn't even aware of it when you mentioned it. You gave me the website link. I looked at it and I began to explore it. And then we took our break, and it's like it just blew up. Now everybody's talking about Project 2025, rightfully so. So I just want to give you flowers on that. You're the first person to bring it to our lexicon, at least my lexicon, and really highlight that. So thank you for that as well.
Yeah, I'm out there looking for trouble.
All right. Well, listening audience, until next Wednesday, hopefully Reggie and I will be back. We're working through some things this summer to be much more consistent, but we appreciate your patience with us. But until next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's all focused on becoming more fully human. Thank you.